It is just after dawn in a quiet town in the Netherlands. Inside a vast, sterile clean room, engineers are assembling a machine the size of a city bus. There are no weapons in sight, yet this is the central front in a silent war between the United States and China, a conflict with no front line, no bullets, and no soldiers. The stakes are total: military superiority, economic dominance, and the entire technological future of the 21st century. This machine is the most effective weapon the United States is deploying. It is not a missile, an aircraft carrier, or a nuclear submarine. It is a device that costs between $200 and $400 million to build, and its strategic importance may exceed that of the atomic bomb. An atomic bomb destroys a city, but without this machine, a country cannot produce advanced technology. AI chips cannot be fabricated. Hypersonic missiles cannot be guided. Autonomous weapons cannot operate. By denying China access to this single piece of hardware, the United States has established a strategic siege without firing a single shot. In response, China is now running the world's most complex reverse engineering operation to break that siege. This is the story of the 21st century's greatest technology war. The machine is built by ASML, a Dutch company, but it is effectively under American control. The reason: the laser system at its heart is produced by Cymer, a company based in California. ASML acquired Cymer in 2013, but the technology still runs on American patents. And under a powerful piece of American legislation known as the Foreign Direct Product Rule, Washington decides where any product containing American technology can be sold. So while ASML manufactures in the Netherlands, Washington decides who can buy. The United States holds the power to approve or deny the sale of this machine to China, and it is the only one of its kind. No other company in the world can produce EUV lithography, giving ASML a market share of over 90%. Each machine consists of more than 100,000 parts, and without them, producing chips below 3 nanometers is physically impossible. This 90% market share is strategically unique. Unlike software monopolies, which can be challenged by new code, ASML's dominance is rooted in physics and a physical supply chain decades in the making. It represents a choke point not on data, but on the atomic-level manufacturing that underpins the entire digital world. A level of control with few historical precedents. If China wants to break this monopoly, it must traverse a 30-year learning curve from scratch and build a new ecosystem with more than 800 specialized suppliers. The probability of that happening right now is close to zero. This is the American weapon: control over a single machine, produced by a Dutch company. Now consider a scenario. What happens if ASML machines suddenly cannot be produced? TSMC, Samsung, and Intel, the world's 3 largest chip manufacturers, are completely dependent on EUV for next-generation chips. Their stockpiles would only cover a few months of demand. Within the first few months, smartphone production slows. Auto factories cannot find chips, triggering a crisis far larger than the one in 2021. Data centers cannot order new servers. AI training models are crippled as new GPU production halts. But the real nightmare is on the military side. Guidance systems for hypersonic missiles depend on advanced chips. AI-guided autonomous weapons are rendered blind without them. Satellite communication systems, electronic warfare platforms, and cyber defense infrastructure are all tied to the same chips. The absence of one machine doesn't just mean your phone gets more expensive. It means an army loses its technological superiority. This is not a theory. Right now, the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is shaking energy markets. When a single artery is cut, the entire system trembles. But oil has alternatives. Advanced chips do not. That is precisely why the United States views access to these machines as a national security issue. And from China's perspective, being denied that access is an existential threat. China is trying to break this monopoly, and in doing so, it is running one of the world's largest reverse engineering operations. According to a Reuters investigation, an EUV prototype was built in a high-security laboratory in Shenzhen, led by former ASML engineers. The machine was reportedly completed in early 2025 and can produce EUV light. This effort is being called China's Manhattan Project, but the comparison is inexact. The original Manhattan Project was a race to invent new physics. This is a race to replicate incredibly complex existing engineering under a global blockade. It's a test not of scientific discovery, but of industrial espionage, supply chain mastery, and sheer political will. The operation's details resemble a spy film. Approximately 100 university graduates were tasked with disassembling and reassembling parts of ASML's machines. A special camera at each workstation records the entire process. Engineers who successfully reassemble parts receive bonuses. Workers were given fake IDs to prevent detection. Sources describe this effort as China's Manhattan Project. Huawei is at the center of the project. Harbin Institute of Technology is developing the light source. Changchun Institute of Optics is working on the optical systems. SMEE is handling the integration. More than 3,000 researchers are working on this project. Beijing's goal is to produce chips with this machine by 2028, but sources say the realistic date is 2030. And this raises a critical question. China built a prototype, but can it break the monopoly? At this point, it's necessary to understand why the ASML issue is not a technology story, but a national security matter. Modern wars are won with chips. Hypersonic missiles need nanometer-scale processing power to change trajectory while moving faster than 5 kilometers per second. AI-guided autonomous drone swarms use deep learning chips to detect and classify enemy targets within seconds. These chips are below 3 nanometers. EUV is mandatory. Natix's senior economist Gary Ng stated it clearly. If China masters EUV, it will enormously increase its geopolitical leverage against the US, and the priority will be military use. This is exactly where Taiwan and Hormuz enter the picture. More than 90% of the world's most advanced chips are produced in TSMC's factories in Taiwan. If China makes a military move on Taiwan, those factories either change hands or are destroyed. In either case, the global chip supply chain collapses. The current crisis in the Strait of Hormuz is shaking energy markets, with tensions involving Iran pushing oil prices up. But the real fragility is in chips, because the Taiwan Strait is an artery just like Hormuz. Oil flows through one, chips through the other, and both can be cut with a single blow. The US knows this risk, which is exactly why it's using ASML as a weapon to restrict China's chip capacity. The logic is clear. If China cannot produce its own advanced chips, its ability to produce the military technology needed to seize Taiwan is limited, even as its motivation to do so may increase. Chip supremacy directly translates to war supremacy, and the US is trying to close the last gap to protect that supremacy. The US has been blocking the sale of ASML's EUV machines to China since 2019. The Netherlands complied in 2023. Not a single EUV machine was sent to China. But there was a gap. Older generation DUV machines could still be sold. Chinese manufacturers were able to produce chips down to 7 nanometers using those older machines. The US now wants to close that last gap. The Match Act, introduced to Congress in April 2024, aims to ban the export of DUV immersion lithography systems to China as well. And according to a CNAS analysis, ASML is still actively maintaining existing machines in China. This maintenance can extend a machine's lifespan up to 30 years. The US wants that cut too. The siege is tightening. And can China's prototype truly break the siege? China was able to produce prototype EUV light. That is true. But an EUV machine is far more than a light source. Morningstar analyst Javier Coronero explained it. Even if China can produce some EUV light, turning it into an economically viable production process could take years or even decades. ASML's machines consist of more than 100,000 parts. The mirrors produced by Germany's Zeiss have the flattest surfaces in the world, with atomic-level precision. No other company can produce them. China's prototype is stuck at exactly this point. ASML's network of more than 800 global suppliers means every part requires specialized materials, specialized software, or specialized sensors. Patent walls, non-disclosure agreements, and 30 years of accumulated knowledge cannot be bought with money. China's prototype is much larger than ASML's commercial machines, cannot yet produce chips, and its light source power is only around 100 watts compared to ASML's 600 watts. China has opened a door, but behind that door lies a 30-year corridor. The US is using ASML as a weapon against China, but China has a countercard of its own, rare earth elements. China controls the vast majority of the world's rare earth production. These elements are inside ASML's machines, used everywhere from DUV to EUV, from metrology tools to inspection systems. In 2023, China imposed new restrictions on rare earth exports. ASML CFO Roger Dassin told Bloomberg that the company has several months of stock, but what happens when those stocks run out? Here's the irony of the 21st century's technology war. The US is cutting China's access to chips. China is cutting ASML's access to minerals. Two superpowers are trying to strangle each other's supply chains, and trapped in the middle is a factory in a small Dutch town. Now let's go inside that machine, because what happens here is an engineering miracle. EUV, or extreme ultraviolet, uses light at a wavelength of 13.5 nanometers. To produce this light, the machine processes tens of thousands of molten tin droplets per second. A high-powered laser strikes each droplet in two stages. The first pulse shapes the droplet into a disk. The second pulse vaporizes it, creating a plasma exceeding 200,000 degrees Celsius. This plasma emits EUV light, but this light is absorbed by air, so the entire process takes place in a vacuum. The light then reflects off Zeiss's atomically precise mirrors. These mirrors are so flat that if the entire country of Germany were at this level of flatness, its highest peak would be less than 1 millimeter. The mirrors direct the light onto a silicon wafer, printing billions of transistors. Each transistor is 1/10,000th the thickness of a human hair. These machines take 12 to 18 months to produce. Each one is the size of a truck. The next generation high-NA EUV version can go below 2 nanometers. It is no exaggeration to say this technology revived Moore's law and made the AI chip explosion possible. Experts now define the situation created by ASML with a name, the Silicon Curtain. Just as the Cold War's Iron Curtain divided the world, ASML's EUV technology is splitting global technology in two. On one side are those with access, the US, Europe, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. They can produce advanced chips, lead the AI race, and modernize their military technology. On the other side are those without access, primarily China, forced to make do with older generation chips. Its military modernization is slowing. Its AI capacity is restricted. But this curtain is not permanent. It is a dynamic front. China is pushing through gaps with DUV technology, approaching EUV with its prototype, and applying counterpressure with rare earths. The US is trying to close the last gaps with the Match Act. ASML CEO Christophe Fouquet has openly stated that this situation threatens the entire supply chain. A single Dutch company, whether it intended to or not, became the gatekeeper determining the 21st century's power balances. Machines produced in a small town in the Netherlands are deciding the technological fate of two superpowers. The US is using these machines to besiege China. China is running the world's largest reverse engineering operation to break that siege, and the Netherlands is trapped between them. The ultimate questions remain unanswered. Can China close a 30-year gap? Can the US use this monopoly as a weapon forever? And will the Taiwan Strait one day explode just like Hormuz? When evaluating all these moves, the picture that emerges points to the balance of power in the Taiwan Strait being quietly but fundamentally rewritten. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's statement that a Taiwan crisis is a Japan crisis is now official policy. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has explicitly stated that Japan could become involved in a conflict if China attempts to forcibly seize Taiwan. Former National Security Advisor Akihisa Nagashima put the situation in clear terms. If Taiwan falls under Beijing's control, the foundations of Japan's national security will be shattered. The border will effectively shift from Shanghai to Taipei. In this context, Japan's strategy is defined as defense through denial. While unable to compete directly with China, the goal is to raise the cost of an attack so high that Beijing realizes it will not get a return on its investment. According to Ken Jimbo, Tokyo is signaling to Beijing that it would be very, very costly for Chinese ships to use narrow waterways like the Miyako Strait. With Japan's southwestern islands to the north and the Philippines to the south, the transit corridors around the Taiwan Strait are narrowing. The defense budget is funding this transformation. Since 2022, spending has doubled, reaching a record 9 trillion yen or $56 billion in the 2025 fiscal year. The target of 2% of GDP by 2027 has been met ahead of schedule. The speed of this budget increase is remarkable, but its focus is even more so. For decades, Japan's defense posture was defined by threats from the Soviet Union and North Korea. This current military expansion is driven almost entirely by a single contingency, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, making it a historically rare and highly specific strategic realignment. In 2005, China and Japan's defense spending was equal, at $43 billion each. Today, China has surged to $296 billion, 6 times that of Japan. Japan cannot compete head-to-head, but by leveraging its asymmetric advantages, geography, technology, and alliance networks, it can disrupt China's cost calculations. The United States plays a critical role in this equation. The U.S. Marine Corps unit stationed in Okinawa equipped with missiles, is designed to fight in a contested coastal battlefield by dispersing, hiding, and neutralizing enemy forces. Last year, they moved Nemesis missile launchers to Ishigaki, just 140 miles from Taiwan. The year before, they moved advanced radars to Yonaguni. They also conducted advanced weaponry and fuel resupply exercises on Yonaguni. The US and Japan are weaving an integrated deterrence network across the southwestern islands. Japan holds the spear while the US provides the shield and intelligence. There is a problem. As Nagashima pointed out, we don't know how much is enough. They will only realize it is insufficient if deterrence fails, as it did in Ukraine. But for now, every move Japan makes complicates China's Taiwan calculations a bit further. And every complicated calculation strengthens deterrence a bit more. In summary, Japan is quietly abandoning its 80-year-old defense doctrine. The southwestern islands are no longer merely coastal observation points. They are becoming a spear, equipped with missile batteries capable of reaching the Chinese mainland, hypersonic weapons, electronic warfare systems, and amphibious assault units. A 360-degree defense network is being established on the Pacific Front. Asymmetric warfare capabilities are being built using kamikaze drones and low-cost missiles. Military and economic alliances with Europe are breaking China's supply chain hegemony. Drone technology and combat experience are being shared with Ukraine. And integrated exercises with the US and the Philippines are narrowing the transit corridors around Taiwan. China's reactions, accusations of neo-militarism, constitutional violations, and provocation may confirm the strategy's effectiveness. Beijing is disturbed by these moves because each one increases the cost of seizing Taiwan and narrows its room for maneuver. The PLA Daily's acknowledgement that Japan has established a multi-layered attack network demonstrates how seriously China takes this transformation. Japan's transition from shield to spear is not yet complete. It is still in its early stages, but the first counterstrike missiles, set to be deployed on March 31, 2026, are a concrete sign that an 80-year era has come to a close, and that the power balance in the Asia-Pacific is being rewritten. And in this new equation, the one variable that will determine the future is whether this spear is sharp enough to deter a war before it begins.